Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today. The topic for today's webinar is the Bad River Band Microgrid, Solar plus Storage as a tool for tribal energy sovereignty and resilience. This webinar is being presented by Clean Energy Group and by the Clean Energy States Alliance with support from the U.S. Department of Energy Office of Electricity and Sandia National Laboratories. Before I pass it over to our many excellent guest speakers that we have on the line today, I'd like to go over a few quick webinar logistics. All of our attendees are in listen-only mode. That means that you can hear us, hopefully, but we can't hear you. You have a couple of options to join the audio portion of today's webinar. You can call in via telephone, or you can connect via computer mic and speakers. If you'd like to minimize your webinar console so that you can view the presentation full screen, you can click on the orange arrow that you see circled there on the webinar control panel. And you can also click on that to expand your webinar console. And one of the things that you might like to do with your webinar console that we very much encourage is to submit questions and comments. We will be saving some time following our presentations for a Q&A with the audience, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. So please do type those in when you think of them. Don't wait until the very end to type your questions in, because we do have a lot of people registered, and so we're expecting a great turnout and a lot of questions. And a final note, this webinar is being recorded. We'll send you an email with a webinar recording and a PDF of the webinar slides either today or tomorrow. And we'll also post those webinar materials on our website. You can see those at cleanegroup.org/webinars. So with that, I'd now like to pass it over to our moderator for today's webinar, Shelley Robbins. Shelley is a project director at Clean Energy Group, and she is going to get us started today.
Thank you, Samantha. As Sam mentioned, this webinar is presented in part by Clean Energy Group. Clean Energy Group is a national nonprofit based in Montpelier, Vermont, and we are funded primarily by private foundations, many of which you can see on this slide. We have a sister organization, the Clean Energy States Alliance, or CESA. CESA is a nonprofit membership organization of state agencies that manage clean energy funds all around the country. CESA supports state energy agencies in the development of clean energy policy, programs, and project deployment. Next slide. On the Clean Energy Group side, one of CEG's projects is the Resilient Power Project. The Resilient Power Project was developed 8 years ago after Superstorm Sandy with the goal of enabling access to resilient power technologies for under-resourced communities, with a specific focus on solar and storage. The Resilient Power Project work is a reflection of the fact that communities of color are typically the most impacted after severe weather events and outages. Through this work, we put out a variety of resources, including reports, some of which you can see pictured here, as well as webinars like this one. All of those resources and much more can be found at our website, resilient-power.org. Next slide. In addition to this, we also work with policymakers to enable more equitable access to resilient power technologies. We also support actual solar plus storage project development. This map shows you some of those projects that we have supported through both in-house analysis as well as providing small technical assistance grants to cover the cost of pre-development feasibility analysis. Next slide. This webinar is also sponsored by the Energy Storage Technology Advancement Partnership, STAP. STAP is a federal state funding and information sharing project conducted under contract with Sandia National Laboratories that aims to accelerate the deployment of electrical energy storage technologies in the U.S. STAP is funded by the U.S. Department of Energy Office of Electricity, managed by Sandia, and administered by the Clean Energy States Alliance. You can see on the map a number of the projects that have been supported by the STAP program located all over the country. Next slide. Next slide. There we go.
Sorry, there you go.
Before we get to our speakers today, I wanted to thank the two people who make the STAP program possible. Dr. Imre Zsuk, who is with us today and will be speaking next. He is the Director of Energy Storage Research at the U.S. Department of Energy Office of Electricity, and Dan Borneo, who is the Engineering Program and project lead at Sandia National Laboratories. And we'll begin with some opening remarks from Dr. Zook. And Dr. Zook has been a leader in energy storage work for many years and has been instrumental in the development of new energy storage technologies, applications, economics, and business models. He recently held a 2-day workshop on energy storage equity issues and is leading an initiative to advance energy storage in low-income, overburdened, and Native communities. Before I turn the webinar over to Dr. Zook, I'll remind you to type your questions in as they occur to you, and I'll try to organize things as we proceed with our speakers. Now, Dr. Zook.
Hello there. I'm Imre Duk, and I direct the Energy Storage Research Program at the Department of Energy, Office of Electricity. And it's a real honor to provide a few introductory remarks for a great project, not by our office, but by the Office of Indian Energy. And it's the Bad River Chippewa group in Wisconsin. I should mention that I have spent many years in Wisconsin also, in Milwaukee, and I have met Chippewas, and I am glad to be making the introduction now. So, oops. To start with, global warming is real. We are seeing increasing amounts of floods. Everybody can remember the East Coast, Florida Harvey. A year before that, there were big floods in the upper Wisconsin area. Nowadays, we have a terrific drought on the West Coast, the worst in 400 years. So, floods, droughts, but also wildfires, ice storms, earthquakes, and volcanoes. We need local resilience. And for that, we need renewable energy coupled with storage. Oops. But we notice that resources for renewable energy and other things are not distributed evenly. For one thing, the cost of electricity has been rising much faster than the cost of living during the last decade. Outages have happened more frequently, particularly at the grid edge. And for this reason, inner city communities, but particularly tribal communities, are affected more strongly by these events than the rest of the country. There is such a thing as energy insecurity, and it comes both from the expense of electricity, the availability of electricity, and the outages that happen. And we notice that American Indian, Alaska Natives, and Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders are among the most high suffering groups from energy insecurity. Lower incomes are disproportionately non-white, and those are the ones that suffer energy insecurity. So we have to avoid creating a new energy divide. It's enough to have a wealth divide and a digital divide, but we certainly don't want an energy divide because that's under our control. And we need to consider social equity, and we need to do that for urban, rural, and tribal communities. We have been putting up energy storage projects for all of these groups over the last 10 years or so. Here, for example, a project in Sterling, Massachusetts, a small rural community. You can see the groundbreaking, and 3 months later, the finished energy storage device. Now, the important thing is that this was built to provide security, but as we showed, it can also have terrific payback. This project will pay back in 6 years. And what you see here is the payback during the first year alone from arbitrage, monthly peaks and annual peaks, and avoiding charges for them. And during the first year alone, we saved some $400,000 for this city. The capital cost of the project was about $2.7 million, and by about 2 years, we had saved $1 million in avoided cost. Another project we are doing is in Cordoba, Alaska. Again, a very small rural community that has hydropower. And we built energy storage for them because they not only have hydropower, which is very cheap, but they have diesel, which is expensive. And they needed diesel as backup, and we replaced basically the diesel with storage for backup reserve. So 1 megawatt, 1 hour battery, which was commissioned in 2019. And I should notice that this is a fishing community, but it is also a community of the Eyak Native Americans. I am trying to forward. Okay. We maintain a small project of a small program of tribal energy projects. And we have those all over the country, starting with the Alaskan village of Levelock, going down to the Navajos, the Pueblos, the San Carlos Apaches, and the Seminoles. Now, I should say that none of these projects are as well advanced as the Chippewa's project that you will hear about today. But we are working at all of these projects, and we hope one day we will have a ribbon cutting and you'll all be invited. So all of these native groups have different problems, but they're all based on the fact that they are grid edge and that they are overburdened. The Navajo Nation, for example, has 18,000 remote locations. Many of them are served by lead-acid battery at the moment, but these tend to decay very fast, and the maintenance is a problem. We are trying to replace those by MnO2 batteries, which are developed by one of our research labs. In Picuris Pueblo, it's the high cost of electricity from a neighboring utility. They have solar of their own, but they get relatively little for the solar that they sell, and they have to pay a lot for the electricity that they get. So in their case, energy sovereignty was a particular issue that they want to develop, and we are happy to help them with it. The San Carlos Apaches have over 100 outages per year. We did the cost-benefit analysis for them and the sizing of a storage unit, and eventually we hope the storage unit will be installed. For the Seminoles, it's grid instability, and we have helped them with an RFP, developing an RFP, with selecting vendors, and with eventually with commissioning of the built system. And finally, our last project that we took on was in Levelock, Alaska. It's a combined Aleut and Inuit population, and they exist entirely on diesel, 234 kilowatt of diesel at 85 cents per kilowatt hour, expensive. We did the baseline analysis for them. We did analyze the fuel savings they might be getting from storage, the reduction from operation and maintenance, and the reduction, the increase in generator life. So these are some of the projects which we do in the Office of Electricity. But now to the Bad River Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa in Wisconsin. Wait, I should go to the next slide, not that one. This is not my project. This is a DOE Indian Energy Office project. And all I will do is show the solar, 500 kW, and they actually have 3 storage units, which amount to 500 kW for about 2 hours. And it's a splendid example of energy sovereignty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Juk. Now let's hear more about this very cool project. And Sam, I'll let you pull up the presenter slides.
Working on it, hold on.
I'll give that a second. I'll go ahead and start introducing. We have with us today Bill Bailey, who's president of the 100% volunteer nonprofit Check Bay Renewables, whose current initiatives include microgrid development in local municipalities and tribes, energy tracking, solar PV development, and electric vehicle education and infrastructure implementation. Then we'll hear from Dan Wiggins, Tribal Energy Manager at the Bad River Band of the Lake Superior, Chippewa. Dan has overseen air quality for the tribe for 10 years and has overseen renewable energy activities since 2017. He is the project lead for the Ishkonige Nawadide, I'm going to butcher that, I knew I would, solar microgrid project. Those beautiful words mean it catches fire. And every solar project should have a name that good. Then we also have Amy Simpkins, who is co-founder and CEO at Microgrid Analytics, where she solves wicked problems at the intersection of energy technology and economics using math and modeling. Amy will be launching the Power Flow podcast in September, which will amplify diverse voices in the energy revolution. And as a podcast junkie, I'm really looking forward to that. And then we'll have Tim Drazel, an electrical engineer with more than 20 years of experience in industrial automation and energy. With Faith Technologies and Intech Solutions, Tim's roles include leading the effort to design, construct, integrate, start up, and operate the 3 microgrids at Bad River. So take it away, Bill, and then hand off to Dan when you're finished. And a reminder, folks, please type questions in as you think of them. I've already gotten a couple of questions about this webinar. It is being recorded, and it will be provided to all presenters and also posted on our website at the end. All right.
For the Bad River Tribe, we helped develop the initial high-level conceptual plan for their Solar+Storage project and put the necessary team together to implement the project. Our role was based more on optimism than technical expertise. There were three primary drivers when formulating the plan. First, Bad River's electricity was relatively expensive, establishing a financial motivation. Second, Bad River had recently gone through a 500-year flood that isolated the community, creating a greater need for resilience. Both Dan and Amy will talk more about this resilience factor. And third, as a sovereign nation, the tribe had long-term goals, including energy independence. So we put a team together consisting of Microgrid Analytics for technical support and Madison Solar Consulting, who had experience in solar development. Together with tribal support, we formed a successful team with a wide berth of knowledge and enthusiasm. So basically, CBR's role was assist with non-technical grant writing, utilizing our ties to and communications with the local utilities, and offering a business perspective to assist with management and financial analysis. If you want to know more about Check Bay Renewables, you can check out our website, and I am honored to work with all the team members presented here, and especially with Dan Wiggins and the Bad River Tribe, who is up next. So take it away, Dan.
Good afternoon, everyone. There we go. Yeah, good afternoon. Here's a little overview. Going back, I kind of jumped a slide on you guys. I am the air quality technician for the Bad River Band of Lake Superior Ojibwe. We are on the southern shores of Lake Superior, and I am going to give you a presentation on our microgrid project. We named our project Ishkonige Nawadide Solar Microgrid Project. It is a beautiful name. I do like kind of the backstory sometimes because I reach out to our Ojibwe speakers and get these names. So it is communicated and trying to get these words perfect, which, you know, necessarily you don't get all the time. But it does. Translated, it means it catches fire. What I laugh about is literally, it means it's catching on fire. So when I was looking for a name, I was looking for like a catcher's mitt, you know, like, hey, we're catching the solar rays. Nevertheless, you know, I think it's still a great name. This is a pilot project, one of the first large projects from the Bad River Tribe. And, you know, we hope this project catches fire. So, you know, going from there, I'll lead into the other slides and hope you enjoy the presentation. Again, just a little overview. We're going to go over the objectives, the timelines, get into some of the details, the development, challenges, obviously, with COVID and everything else. There's the numerous challenges, even without COVID. And then just what are, you know, the tribe's next steps. You know, these are never just it. You never want this in an incubator. You don't want this to just be the sole project. You want this to actually lead into other stuff. So getting into the brief objective. So what started this? What triggered this? There's a lot that goes into just renewable energy in general. Any energy projects, it just doesn't start with one thing. So the tribe has been looking at feasibility studies, looking at other wind, biomass, all these other great types of resources and stuff since probably about 2005 to 2007 is when they really started diving into renewable energies. Through that work, though, you can obviously build a foundation, recognize what's feasible. We had a great biomass project at one time, but again, the economics sometimes just don't work out for certain projects. Sometimes you're not going for economics. So for example, this project really focused on the resiliency after a flood. But what really helped trigger this project was getting awarded the Usdoe Grant. I think Bill highlighted kind of the team that was put together. Without a team like that, these grants are very difficult to get. These are highly competitive, highly technical grants. But when awarded, can trigger a great mechanism for both community efforts and just renewable energy efforts in general. So bringing these people and all this experience to the Bad River Tribe is a great asset for the community and just the municipalities even around us. But let's get back to why we started this project. Again, we do all that renewable energy planning, and then we're like, hey, look at all this stuff. We experienced the 2016 flood, really highlighting gaps that we probably didn't even highlight in some of our past strategic planning. A lot of people, I think, on the webinar from Wisconsin or have at least heard about the 2016 flood. Some call it a 500-year flood, some call it a 1,000-year flood, meaning it rarely happens or it's just that impactful. Some of the specific things that the tribe experienced was just crucial outages. Obviously, with flood, overhead lines and stuff were knocked down and just knocked out electricity to facilities such as the Health and Wellness Center. You know, Emergency Operations Center was affected. All of these facilities and things that we were expected or hoped that would stay up kind of failed. In response to that, there was a number of documents that were created and kind of assisted in the development of the project. The specific details of this project, because I'm going to get on, because I think I get into that in a couple of slides, is that in response to that, the tribe targeted those crucial facilities that we realized were affected by the flood, and we're installing 500 kilowatts of solar with over 1,000 kilowatt-hours of battery storage at 3 crucial facilities. One's the Chief Blackbird Administration Building, which is the primary place for government functions. Wastewater treatment plant, which water and sewer for the Odena community. I don't think I need to express how important that is. And then the Health and Wellness Center, which is the primary clinic and care for the community and tribe as well. Systems at the Health and Wellness Center and wastewater treatment will offset facility electrical loads and offer assistance level of resiliency if power goes out. That's the main goal. And then those projections could be days, if not weeks. Give you a little feel for how this project kind of started. Again, a lot of work starts back in 2007, 2016 with proper strategic planning. But what really triggered this project was a USDOE grant. So in April 29th, we submitted that award. Like Bill said, a little bit before that, we put the team together to go after it. We developed a great application because we had a great team. So, you know, having Microgrid, having Check Bay, Madison Solar, you know, having a solid team that understands all the facets of what that project and the DOE is asking for was really important. 2019, or sorry, April 29th, we submitted the grant, and in September of that year, we were kind of awarded, or we were awarded. And then in January 24th, I'm leading right into that. After we were awarded, we executed the project. We executed the RFP process. So we had to figure out who we were going to hire, and then, you know, obviously invite them on site. So January 24th, we held a site visit for the interested contractors. In May, the tribe awarded the project to NTech Faith Technologies. They had a great story, great history of working with microgrids, and they had a great proposal for the Bad River Tribe. October 8th was when the tribe officially executed the construction. This was in 2020 through COVID, so that was a huge accomplishment to even get that in the ground at that time. January of 2021, submitted internet interconnection applications, and then May 14th, we held the virtual commission. Getting into the project details, you know, why go solar? You know, again, we've done a lot of feasibility studies, first of all. So we did the kind of the upfront work in identifying what resources work best. But I think there always was a question of whether or not solar still works in northern Wisconsin. But as we can see, it's been being developed, it's been being installed far north of Wisconsin. But solar generates clean energy. which is another goal of the Bad River Tribe. As I was introduced, I come from an air quality background, so I'm an air quality technician first, that got into renewable energy work because it is a clean energy. So, you know, one of the tribe's goals is to reduce their carbon footprint and, you know, look at those clean energy goals. This specific project goes into prolonging power supply when the grid goes down. And then I think a secondary or even a third goal I say is, you know, reduce utility bills. I think financials are a great contribution to any renewable energy project. Shouldn't be the first goal. I think it's always the second or third goal. Necessary to tackle climate change, locks in savings as electricity prices increase, and again, increases resiliency. The three systems will generate 630,000 kilowatt hours annually. Same electric use of 74 average Wisconsin households, and similar to avoiding 500 tons of CO2 emissions a year. Obviously, there's an economic benefit. I think this is what gets some or a lot of people to buy in. I think a lot of people go into renewable energy. I think the first reason should be because it's the right thing to do. You know, having clean energy, striving for those goals, that's a right thing to do, first of all. So that's always the first goal. The financial thing can be a second goal, though. And I think that's really what can help sell this, you know, to tribal leaderships or, you know, the facilities people that are actually hooking these up and taking care of these for the upcoming years. So the three systems will reduce electrical bills, and they have been estimated up to about $58,000 a year. We're really looking really good at that as we're looking at our first couple months of production. Again, our second goal, so we had a couple different goals. So again, doing it because it's the right thing to do, and then offering a level of resiliency to the tribe. Responding to those 2016 flood events, I think were crucial. Making sure that we identified those gaps and, you know, looked at addressing them effectively. So making sure these systems, I think my team knows, my simple analogy, if you want to even call it that, is when the lights go on, I want the buildings to stay on. We're thinking resiliency first. We'll think about the financials later on. Each system can operate with or without the grid. Solar, batteries, and backup generation will work together. So all three facilities also have generators. Two facilities have a natural gas generator, and another facility, the clinic, has a diesel. Without the batteries, the solar shuts down during a power outage. The Health and Wellness Center and wastewater treatment can operate for extended periods without the grid, especially during the spring, summer, and fall. Health and Wellness Center can operate on an average about 300 hours without the grid. Solar plus batteries extend operating without the grid by an average of 200 hours versus generator alone. So a lot of ways you can operate this. Basically, with the generator, it's going to be very different. These microgrids can probably go for a couple weeks, if not longer. So very impressive. I think we definitely accomplished the goals. Why add batteries? Again, the first goal was resiliency, but it also smoothed out intermittency of solar, increases emissions reductions, increases the economic benefits. Again, resiliency, we'll throw that one to the top next time, but increases resiliency, allows solar to work without the grid. You know, extends solar is only on when the sun is out. So, you know, how do we use that solar? How do we capture the benefits of those, you know, those great solar sunshine days? Energy tracking. So moment by moment tracking for builder uses, solar generation, battery state of charge. Tracking enables system to be optimized. Tracking also confirms the system is performing as designed. Microgrid and NTech will independently track data and meet quarterly with the tribe to discuss system optimizations. So we have a really great check and balances system to make sure that these systems are operating. And this doesn't even include the utilities, which technically have their great meters on their end, which also, you know, tracks what the utilities, or I mean, what the microgrids are doing. So lots of monitoring. And I think during those quarterly meetings that were briefly mentioned on that last bullet point, monitoring is probably 50% of the discussion. Really getting into what the details are, what the production was, and then what the production is going to look like. And then obviously, if we're going to be optimizing the system, whether it's to increase financing or to increase resiliency. Where are these located? So if you're up in the Bad River Tribe, we have this small little village called Odena. So kind of the center where our government operations are. And within there, we have a number of housing. So we probably have about 200 houses with 20 to 30 buildings. Our casino is located there, convenience stores, a lot of government functions. But the main ones we're looking at, wastewater treatment plant, administration, health, and then the health and wellness center. The administration building, again, getting into the details of the system, is a 24 kW DC solar panel generation rooftop installation. You guys are going to look at the other two and be like, whoa, what was this? This only has an emergency panel. So the team really was only asked to go and address the emergency panel, which wasn't the entire building load, because the building is probably a top 3 load for the Bad River Tribe. So they accomplished that, and it's a beautiful system. Battery storage of 10 kilowatts. I think we doubled this. Tim can elaborate that, but I want to say we added another battery in there. So that's probably increased slightly, pushes excess energy back to the building, grid forming capabilities in the event of a utility outage, and battery charge on excess solar. Here's some pictures. Rooftop mount, metal roof. The rackings are very simple. So if you have a metal roof and it has those little grooves on there, those little rackings work great. So definitely recommend this setup. I don't mind it at all. Escape cabinet in the back. Very cool. The maintenance guys love it. They like kind of the technology features and stuff, but it's also hidden to the back, so where it's not going to be too obvious and stuff, even though they are great to look at. Wastewater treatment plant. This one was fun. I always tell people that this field that we walked into really was a starting point for me and Bill Bailey. So when I invited Bill and Check Bay Renewables, I invited Bill to this field, and our first goal, I said, is this is our field. We can use this for solar, and then obviously, you know, the wastewater treatment plant was over there. So we had a great starting point, and this microgrid probably has a closer place in my heart than the other ones, even though they're all special. It's a 200 kilowatt DC solar panel generation, 200 with a 250 kW inverter. Battery storage of 200 kilowatts, pushes excess energy back to the building, does not form a grid in the event of a utility outage. That's why Tim's here to elaborate possibly on why that is. And then batteries charge on excess solar. And then here's one of the final pictures. So you got the batteries up in front, solar right there. You just see the first row. There's a few rows back there, and then way in the back you can see the wastewater treatment plant. So we did have to cross the road, so we did have to bury some lines, and then we did do some drilling to get across the road to the facility. The health and wellness center, wastewater treatment is special, but as far as large and big, this probably hits it. 300 kW DC solar panel, ground mount installation. Right in the back, I have a great picture coming up. 250 kilowatt AC inverter, battery storage of 200 kilowatts, pushes excess energy back to the building, grid forming capabilities in the event of a utility outage, and batteries charged on excess solar. This microgrid is doing it. I think as far as, you know, every single goal. The facility was a newer facility, so not that it was easier to work with. I don't want to say go that far, Tim, because every building provides challenges, but it was a little bit newer, and I think the system was able to be included much easier. Picture of the solar arrays. So in that field back there, we have 3.5 large rows of solar arrays, and then our battery bank right there. That's at the edge of the parking lot. And there's a bird's eye view. So very beautiful. Definitely room for more solar. One of the cool things about the clinic is they are looking at expansion and looking at likely filling that space. Just another picture of the batteries. Again, the batteries is what makes these systems very unique, makes them resilient. So just wanted to highlight that again. One of the other things we do for just outreach purposes, we're also expanding the viewing capabilities of this eventually. But if you're within the tribe, you can go to the clinic. There's a kiosk right there when you walk in. It's COVID, so the clinic's probably not the easiest place to get in without getting checked. But you can walk in, visible right there, and it kind of goes over what the details of what the microgrid. So again, we have all these monitors on there. Another positive what you can do with those monitors is creating great outreach displays. Again, we don't want to do this in an incubator. We aren't hiding these technologies. I think the best thing to do is to learn from them, and then to be able to provide outreach to everybody on what's capable. So putting this in a clinic, having this viewable, not just for the staff, but for the people walking in, and just showing them, what the Bad River Tribe is doing and what they're benefiting from. Great job. that was to Tim, sorry, and not complimenting myself. Tim and team. Planning and development, the Ishkonige project was guided by strategic energy planning in 2012 and 2017. Strategic energy planning workshops and meetings, those need to be revisited. Those need to be had regularly. So again, looking at 2012, but learning from that, identifying new gaps, looking at it in 2017, and then doing it again. Now that we've installed solar panels, we have these microgrids, we have to go back and, put that work group together and, not develop a new energy plan, but maybe add to it and, again, learn from it. For this project, though, the tribe used the newly adopted 2018 Emergency Preparedness Plan. 2016 was a big event, identified a lot of gaps, not just within energy, but just abroad through the tribe and through neighboring municipalities. So connecting all of the dots through Emergency Preparedness Plan was crucial and helped identify kind of the critical infrastructure. Again, that's not just affected by power outages, but just had the gaps during those events. Several buildings and scenarios were identified for possible solar projects. Bill is a creative mind. Bill Bailey is a visionary and can walk into a field and definitely, get the wheels turning and stuff. And so we identified many buildings, many scenarios. Then, again, leaning on those strategic documents, those preparedness plans, and all were crucial in really coming up with the project, I guess I'll say, the Ishkonige Nawadide Project. And that's really what we use to identify the infrastructure. Those 3 buildings were fairly written into those plans. Again, the execution of the project, it started in May, request for proposals of 2020. The other thing that we did when we executed the project was invited Microgrid to help us do some strategic energy planning again, but specifically with the Ishkonige Nawadide Project. I think with microgrids, the intent is to obviously accomplish the first goals of resiliency, be able to take those buildings offline in the event of emergency or an outage. But then also there's so many benefits of looking at expansions, looking at other scenarios of microgrids, again, learning from what we've done, what we've implemented, applying them to other facilities. So what we did was have Microgrid come in, lead a kind of a workshop, or we did have them lead a workshop, bring our tribal leadership together, directors, important community members, and develop a strategic plan for our Ishkonige Nawadide project. Through that, I do have graphics. I'll get into that a little bit. After we did that, my next major probably event was obviously being able to do construction in October during COVID year. I think that was a big accomplishment, a lot of question marks, but when we were able to hit ground, I think it was a huge celebration for everybody. We obviously did the virtual commissioning. A lot of people may have been on that are on here now. We did that in May of 2021, really highlighting the tribe's initial goals of having that infrastructure construction and operational. Next meetings coming up are quarterly reporting and progress update meetings. Again, these meetings will be very important in optimizing the systems, just going over what happened and what's going to happen in the future. Again, developing that phased energy plan is really beneficial to the tribe, beneficial to the projects that we started. So looking at a phased out approach and then identifying, again, what's that ultimate end goal. We have a tribal utility authority. Trust me, utility might be on here right now. That's a very scary word for other utilities and neighboring utilities, but that doesn't necessarily mean tribe utility. It doesn't mean we're going to be an Xcel Energy or something of that sort. It's what is the tribe defining that, what that ultimate goal is. One of the things I will always tell everybody is resiliency. You're not going to have it without the neighboring utilities, the utilities that are at home. You need to work with the utilities. You need to work with the Xcels. You need to work with the Bayfield Electrics, the dairy lands. They have great infrastructure. Although we may not always meet eye to eye with rates, or we know that they have outages, 99.9% of the time they're up and running. So let's work with what works. Let's invite the utilities, I think, to these strategic meetings and really develop a solid plan. And that's where I think where the tribe is moving forward to. Again, what were the major challenges? I think aside from what I'm going to list here, Tim's going to have his unique challenges. Amy's going to have their unique challenges. Bill, and all of them will have their unique challenges. And trust me, Dan's on top of that list. However, really, I think what 2020 really highlighted was when we hired Dave was when the tribe issued their public health emergencies to the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. The first thing we did was I invited the team, I invited the investors, the Faith Technologies, tribal leadership, and got together and said, what is the goal? Should we stop? Should we keep going? And I think the ultimate consensus was this was built around resiliency. We don't know when this event is going to go away. I think it makes sense to make sure that we get this done. So I had a great team that really just followed through kind of the action items and the things that needed to be done through COVID, and we're able to get construction done by October, or started by October, sorry. COVID obviously made meetings difficult, but I think it highlights virtual meetings. We're here, so we have a great venue, and I think a lot of people felt the benefits of virtual meetings. Not that we have to like them. Trust me, we're probably all sick of virtual meetings, but the benefit of being able to bring someone into the room and just tackle issues and problems at hand, I think was definitely a benefit. Construction, however, was obviously limited. Tim will highlight issues with shipping and stuff of that sorts maybe, but COVID obviously just made construction a little bit difficult. I think we could have started probably in September or so, but October ended up being the start time. And we had great contractors. One of the things I'll say about Faith, Microgrid, and just the team in general is being able to work around those COVID-19 policies, testing, temperature checks. We can go on. but they had to be weekly tested to do any work on the reservation. So huge kudos to the team to be able to follow those guidelines. Community acceptance, renewable energy is great, but I think there's still a acceptance thing on replacing. There was some trees cut, and one elder just said, "I don't know how I feel about it until the panels. The trees were nice." Simple statement, but I think we need to remember how we execute these projects. Those trees were always going to be cut. But it does hit a little place when you see how community's perspective is. So always keep that in mind. What are the next steps? Again, executing that long-term phased energy plan. We were going after a DOE grant, so I'll be the bearer of bad news. We weren't awarded this year, but it's not going to stop there. Looking at other pieces of the project, identifying additional gaps, looking at other funding sources. All of that is going to lead into how this phase plan is executed. I don't think grants were going to be 100% of the answer anyways, so that we were always going to have to go look for other additional funding, and we will. Phase 2 directly ties in the new Head Start and the existing elderly building to the Health and Wellness Center to the H&W's existing microgrid. Phase 3 looks at a 1 megawatt of solar with residential housing. Both of those are on the tribe's list as wanting to be done. They are goals. And then I put a third one, work with utilities. Again, there's a level of resiliency and a benefit to work with the utilities, making sure that their systems are upgraded and just as resilient, if not more resilient than what we have. A lot of stuff is going underground. I think making sure that those lines are going underground for the specific reasons to protect from weather events, obviously. Training and workforce development is a big piece to a lot of these projects. So training tribal staff is huge with about how the systems operate and what to do if there's any technical issues. Working with existing facility staff, Shockey, Tony, Marcus, I give them a shout out here. But Tim and his staff, making sure that they know how to communicate with each other is crucial to make sure that if there is any issues. It's been quiet, so Shockey's actually called me and said, "Hey, they haven't been around," and I was like, "It's probably a good thing." So that means they're operating good. So I think when you don't hear nothing, it's a positive. It means things are moving pretty smoothly. Again, facility managers will need to be identified to work with Faith. Faith Technologies does offer an Ishkonige program where they are able to kind of go through Faith Technologies training and kind of have a better understanding and even work with the microgrids. Again, partners, you don't do this. This isn't Dan and just Bill working on this. We had a great team to work with. So it starts with, again, that Bad River tribal team, the ones who developed those and executed those feasibility studies and all that other great work that precluded us. But then Check Bay Renewables, this doesn't start without me inviting Bill and having that vision, someone to run with the vision of the tribe and execute some of those goals. Madison Solar, Niels Walter is well known. I probably don't even need to elaborate about Niels Walter. He's just a great guy and has a wealth of knowledge of solar. Microgrid Analytics does great work all the way around with modeling, understands microgrids, and I can't say enough about Amy, Travis, and Mike. And then Faith Technologies, the newest partner of them all. I'm glad to have them on board. Great team, and again, they've just been great to work with throughout the start of the project. Chimigwich, I can ramble on for hours. I tell them be careful letting me just talk. But thank you for your time, and look forward to questions.
Well, I think I'll jump in next. I'm Amy Simpkins here at Microgrid, and in case you couldn't tell, Dan Wiggins is a visionary. And so I know he finished by giving a shout out to all his partners, but really he's the champion of this project. It was his initial vision, his championing of it throughout the project lifecycle that made it happen. And that's just been a joy to work with. So here at Microgrid Analytics, we're your resident nerds. We're going to bring you data, whether you like it or not. Dan will tell you. And it's more than data, though. It's bringing data that can result in actionable decision making throughout the project lifecycle. So from preliminary design and feasibility through providing data and really robust analysis to win that DOE grant, through the final design of the project to make sure, validating that the final design is going to deliver what we said back at the beginning. And now you heard from Dan working on two more paths. One is system monitoring for this existing system, and then also working with the tribe on their long range plans to develop those ongoing phases. Like, we bring data to it all, bring years of experience to it all, so that the tribe has what they need to make solid data backed decisions. And so I want to bring the data to you. And for those nerds who are still in the audience, we're going to get a little bit technical here and just take a look at some data. We're going to focus on the resilience here because you heard it from Dan. The resilience goes straight to the top of the list of priorities every time. We heard that loud and clear from the tribe. And so let's talk about what that means. Every microgrid you've heard about in this entire webinar from Dr. Yuk and then from Dan has been a resilient grid-connected microgrid, with the exception perhaps of the remote Alaska microgrids. Those tend to be islanded all the time. But the vast majority of microgrids across the United States are going to be grid connected. And so that's kind of what we focus on here at MuGrid. And let's talk about that for a minute. The resilience piece is obviously super high priority for the Bad River Tribe. It's also becoming just increasingly more important. The industry, I think, struggles with the idea that it's hard to assign a value to resilience. And so they fall back a lot to economics. And the fact that these microgrids are grid connected provide utility savings during normal operations. And we do that at MuGrid too. Our CTO and my co-founder, Dr. Travis Simpkins, he was at the National Renewable Energy Lab, and he was the chief system architect for their REOPT tool. And if you're familiar with REOPT at all, you know that it's a high fidelity techno-economic model for optimizing energy systems. And Travis brought that mindset, that fusion of technical performance and economics here as we co-founded MuGrid. And so we provide that economic look. But how do we start to wrap our heads around quantifying resilience so that we can decide how to size systems when you get down to cold, hard numbers? One thing that Dan didn't really call out in his presentation, but it was the symbiotic relationship in a grid-connected microgrid between the renewable generation, in the case of Bad River Solar, the energy storage, batteries in this case, and the backup fossil fuel-based generation. He had it on his slide as three sisters, which is a Native American concept about symbiosis. And I have been so grateful to be able to absorb Native wisdom and Native thought process around how to approach sustainability and resilience. And this idea of symbiosis between these three different types of technology is really important. You get this sustainability and carbon reduction, but also survivability when you introduce renewable generation. The sun is more or less always there, with variability for weather and for seasonality. And then you get your control and efficiency of that non-dispatchable asset from your energy storage. The energy storage, of course, also contributes to the efficiency of fossil fuel generation by helping that generation operate at its maximum efficiency levels. And then the fossil fuel-based generation then provides your reliability that in some ways the intermittency of renewable generation doesn't provide. So you have all of their strengths cover each other's weaknesses, right? And so from there, we have a resilient grid-connected microgrid. You've heard it multiple times over and over, but I'll say it again. Resilience is a top priority for the Bad River Tribe, and we believe it was a powerful differentiator during the DOE grant application process. And we were so excited, of course, to have that funding available to make the project possible. But at the same time, it can be hard to define and hard to boil down to just one number or even a set of numbers, and hard to assign a monetary value to it. And so we have developed a suite of tools to evaluate resilience. I'm going to show you some of that right now and what that looks like for these Bad River projects. So we look at resilience not just as a single number, not as some deterministic, even an average or a maximum, but as a set of numbers. It's stochastic. It's based on various parameters of the system, various conditions surrounding an outage. It depends when, what time of day your outage has occurred, what season of the year your outage has occurred, what the load conditions at the building are, which may be related to the time of day or the season, or it may not. And so therefore, your resilience performance can vary. We define resilience duration as the amount of time the system can support the building or the facility before the microgrid fails. Now, with renewables, obviously, there's always the opportunity that you can come back online. And so I think there's even more complicated definitions of resilience beyond this, not just the time to the first failure, but then the time to recovery after that, and how long you can then run after that. Right now, we're sticking to the time to the first failure after the outage. And so then we say, okay, since resilience performance is dependent on all of these factors, what's the confidence? What's the probability that my system can last that long? Because there is a certain duration you're going to be absolutely sure 100% all the time, no matter the time of year or time of day, you're going to be able to last for a certain amount of time. And then depending on those parameters, you might be able to last longer. And so you're going to see that here in a minute. In fact, the curves on this page show you just that very simple relationship. Length of outage in days is on the x-axis, and then confidence or probability of system survival at that duration on the y-axis. You have the Health and Wellness Center on the left and the wastewater treatment plant on the right. We're not looking at the administration building today because, like Dan said, it's one critical loads panel and kind of a smaller system. So the other thing to note as we look at this data is that this data is just looking at Solar+Storage alone, without even looking at the fuel-based generation. We can also look at that, but I'm trying to keep the time short today on the rest so we can get to the Q&A here. So for right now, just looking at Solar+Storage alone. And so if you look at the Health and Wellness Center, and which is, it has a load profile that's pretty similar to what you would think like of a typical office building. So it's peaky during the day, and then it goes down to base load at night. So kind of a fairly typical office type profile. And so what we're seeing here is with Solar+Storage alone, you actually you have 100% confidence of getting up to almost a day of duration, no matter the time of year. But the critical piece of this is that because of the ample solar and the storage there to absorb it, this line actually comes down here and sort of like flattens out, becomes an asymptote, so that pretty much any time of year, and we're going to show you there is some dependence here on seasonality, that you actually have like almost 70% confidence of running almost indefinitely. I've run this chart out to 7 days here, but really if you were to take it out to 14 or 21, you can almost run indefinitely depending on the season here. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. The wastewater treatment plant, it's a slightly different story. Now, I'll remind you that there is a fossil fuel-based generator that's paired with this. And so paired with the generator and that symbiotic relationship, you actually get a lot more duration than this. But the Solar+Storage alone could run the wastewater treatment plant for, again, almost up to a day. And so that covers the vast majority of what I would call normal grid outages, which are, on the order of a few hours. That's going to be able to be covered completely by Solar+Storage. And then once it starts to drop off in confidence with Solar+Storage alone, well, now we bring in the on-site generator, and those work together again to improve each other's efficiency. But these lines don't tell the whole story, because if you were to say I have a 50% confidence of making it to a day and a half, that's not a coin flip. It really is related to time of day, and most especially actually seasonality. So what we did to estimate these, we ran a resilience simulation every hour of the year and calculated how long the microgrid would be able to sustain the facility load. And this is at 100% critical load, because these are critical facilities, the medical center and wastewater treatment. And so what you're seeing here is a heat map. The time of year is on the x-axis, and you'll see the months marked, and the hour of the day is on the y-axis, and then the squares are colored based on how long they could survive. So this big giant purple area in the middle, that is run out to 168 hours, which is 1 week. And obviously it could go, as we just saw, well beyond a week. And that is the case, that is true from late February through early November. There is enough solar resource there and enough battery to absorb it to run, practically indefinitely during that time period. However, when you get into, November through February, that's when you're losing the solar resource, both due to sun angle during the winter, and also, we use typical meteorological year files, so they're accounting for cloud cover and winter in Wisconsin. And you'll see that Solar+Storage alone is dropping down mostly into the green and the dark green. So you're still looking at, 2 or 3 days on Solar+Storage alone. But again, the Health and Wellness Clinic has a fossil fuel generator paired with the system, and that's going to help cover those winter months. The wastewater treatment plant, actually, it has a much flatter load. It's mostly motor and pump loads. It's not that shapely office building. And so that's why you have this kind of different distributions and resilience durations provided by Solar+Storage. Again, they're in this, small amounts of hours, maybe up to a day, which covers, your nominal grid outages. And then we bring in the fuel-based generation other times. There are places where the Solar+Storage does better, particularly, as you might expect during the summer months. And so one final thing we take a look at, and we assumed, like I said, 100% critical load at both facilities, but being able to reduce your load at the facility is a really powerful way to improve resilience performance and make whatever assets you have, no matter how big they are, last even longer. Now, this makes a lot more sense for the Health and Wellness Clinic, which is, again, kind of an office building where you could really shut off lights, shut down HVAC in order to reduce load. And as you can see here, if this black line is the curve at 100% critical load, but if you were to reduce that by just 10%, you're getting just tremendous improvement in outage survivability. And if you were to reduce, even without the generator, and if you were to reduce it even further to 80%, reduce it by 20%, you're basically then in that sort of indefinite sort of range, and that would be year-round, actually. So I show the curve for the wastewater treatment plant. Of course, practically speaking, there's not really much to do to reduce the load there at the wastewater treatment plant. You really need all of that equipment on. But hypothetically speaking, this is what load reduction could look like if it was the type of building that was able to have the load reduced. So these types of tools are incredibly powerful to show the tribe, like, hey, installing new infrastructure isn't the only part of the solution. Part of the solution is how do we operate this building, particularly in case of an outage, so that we can maximize the usage of your assets. So just a little toe dip into kind of the types of things we look at when we're doing resilience analysis. And we really do believe that, being able to quantify the resilience performance is one of the things that helped us as a team win that DOE grant. So that's it from me. And so, oh, sorry, I closed my slides. I'll hand it back over to Sam to take care of the slides. I think we're headed to Q&A at this point, and I just want to mention, as you're asking your questions, Tim Drazel is on the line also from Faith Technologies, and he did not have any remarks, although maybe you want to say hi, Tim, and you're available for Q&A.
Hi, yes. Thank you for inviting me here. I just want to add a couple of quick comments prior to Q&A that just very grateful to be invited to this process and to see the vision and dream for Bad River and to help make it a reality for the community. We worked with Daniel and team on several fronts. It was more than just installing the physical hardware. We partnered with them both in coordinating with the Department of Energy funding, along with methods of being able to take advantage of available tax credits, et cetera, as part of that process. And now, as we continue on with operations and training for the microgrid as it produces energy.
All right, thank you all so very much. I have a tremendous list of fantastic questions. We're not going to get to all of them, but I'm going to try to maybe combine some and get as far as we can. I'm going to start on the DOE grant application process. One question was, did you, when you submitted the DOE grant application, did you do a preliminary design to know how much it would cost to build the microgrid? Kind of related, what's the total CapEx for the systems? And then another related, have you costed it out to all of the remaining phases for full sovereignty? Who wants to tackle the money?
I'll jump in and take the first part of that question, which was about how we did preliminary design for the Department of Energy grant. And so, yes, absolutely. We did a preliminary system sizing that involved, like I said, techno-economic optimization of the battery system, with the caveat that we took the economically optimal system and then we said, well, hey, actually resilience is at the top of the list. So we're going to expand the capability, make sure the tribe gets the resilience, and then say, here's how we should ideally strategically operate that system in grid connected mode in order to then estimate the economics. So the total economics, including estimated utility bill savings, was part of the package. And then I'm going to hand it over to Dan to talk about the eventual, and Tim maybe to talk about the rest of it, because, as we assumed from the beginning that this was we're going to end up with a third-party ownership situation, so that the tax benefits could be monetized. And so that is what ended up happening. And of course, if you've ever worked with a third-party owned system, you know that all the different knobs you can turn in, the financial engineering of that project. And so going into the DOE grant, we made a certain amount of assumptions about that in order to apply for the grant, and say, this is one way it could work out. But then, of course, the way it works out in reality may be slightly different because of the knobs available to turn. So for that practical part, I'm going to hand it back to Dan and Tim to talk about.
Yeah, I think I can respond to that fairly well. So you do give up some sovereignty in the beginning of these projects. However, they are on the Bad River Reservation supporting Bad River infrastructure. How those financing strategies are developed, I think, are unique to tribes, very unique to municipalities and even outside of tribes. So put tribes into that equation, and I don't even know if Tim can tell you, but his financial staff can tell you. It becomes very interesting on how you take advantage of all those different metrics and stuff that come to support the project. What I can say is the tribe has developed a pretty good financial strategy, which Tim and his team, Faith Technologies and Tech, has also helped with. So I think, no, not I think, the end goal of this obviously is to turn this around. The tribe will eventually be 100% owners of this in about 6 to 7 years. So taking advantage of everything. we are still going to end up owning this 100%.
All right. Did you consider any differing battery chemistries or go right to lithium ion? And then there's a related question about, are there any fire considerations or safety considerations?
That's a Tim question. How do you think about answering that one, Tim?
I'll hope I don't fumble the football. We'll see what I can do. The battery chemistries that we have looked at have been primarily lithium ion, or I believe lithium iron phosphate. And as far as safety, our systems that we build do have fire suppression systems built within them to help contain any potential risk.
All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Are there any, having to do with the land around the solar panels, are there any plans to fill that area in with pollinator habitat or do any sort of restoration? I think, Dan, you had said that those trees were going to be cut, so I guess they were timber?
Yeah, no, the tribe's forestry program definitely did that cut and took advantage of what they could. So, yeah, but aside from that, I think there is always a certain level of, like remediation and, just, again, we want to make sure these are feel good projects still. So we are continuing to look at even pollinators. So I did hear that. I think even blueberry bushes and certain edible plants were suggested to go underneath panels. One of the immediate things though that we're kind of doing, or that we are doing, is looking at green fencing. So looking at putting cedar trees up along with rose bushes and stuff to kind of keep, some people out of the some of the regions. The Health and Wellness Center though is actually looking at, again, they're looking at expansion. So a lot of that area is going to be taken up. But they're also looking at walking trails around the solar panels. So we are trying to do some fencing just to keep, four-wheelers and all that other excessive activity out of there. But we invite kind of the pollinators and kind of the friendly uses. If we can get blueberries in there and people are picking blueberries under solar panels, I think that's a really feel-good type of project and really just helps the industry. So yeah, looking at all facets.
All right. Couple of cold weather questions. Are the batteries, well, do you anticipate, of course they just went live, but do you anticipate the batteries to be affected by cold weather? And is snow on the panels an issue in the winter?
So the containers that were shown in the image are cold weather rated. So the batteries themselves are rated for operating temperatures of, and I'm going to approximate temperatures here, of close to 0 degrees C. The containers themselves have both a heating and a cooling package to keep them within their operating range. And that operating range is well below 20 degrees, 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So in fact, one of the fun things with this product is going through the month of February when we had some very classic northern Wisconsin temperatures. In regards to snow, the modeling and design teams took a look at the angles in which to put those panels at and the height to keep them off the floor. This specific area of Wadena, Wisconsin sees, I believe, approximately 60 to 90 inches of lake effect snow annually. So that was definitely a factor in the design, trying to maximize snow shed and winter production.
All right, Dan, this question is for you. Do you have measurable air quality benefits from the solar and storage systems? Is it something that could be used when other folks message about the importance of these systems? And do you plan to install EV charging stations to be powered by the microgrid?
The second one's easier. So we are looking at EV charging stations. I think our bill is definitely gonna probably help us push that agenda with the tribe. But I think the tribe is also very interested in just, obtaining one and looking at the benefits of just having and endorsing that type of technology. The first question, repeat it real quick. Remind me. I'm sorry.
Let's see, I've already lost it. Oh, the air quality. Do you have any?
The air quality.
Measure. Like, do you know?
It's
Displaced.
not necessarily. Yeah, that one's a little bit more difficult to look at, like actual, and from an air quality technician perspective, you would think I'd have a straightforward answer. I really don't. You're going to more look at kind of what you reduce, so looking at the solar production and kind of the carbon reduction from that. Aside from that, it's really hard to look at any actual reduction within I think you're looking at actual reduction within there is what your question is referencing. That would be very difficult.
Yeah. How are the power plants that would otherwise be providing power, what is their fuel source? Do we know if they're like coal fired or gas?
Dan, I can
yeah,
probably,
Bill probably has yeah, go ahead, Bill.
their power comes from Dairyland Power, which they're 60% coal fired, 87% fossil fuel fired. And so that's one of the reasons why the tribe was so emphatic about going with clean energy, because they feel that they can do better than that. And most of that power comes from coal plants that are in either Wausau or La Crosse. They're transported very long distances. And so, yes, the tribe is reducing the air quality in general, but the air quality is much more affected by the fires that are going on right now in Canada and out west. And I'm sure that Dan can tell about the air monitoring system that they have going on there, and that's probably a much more significant factor.
All right, this question is about the display. There was a wonderful slide that showed the display that the public can see. Has there been consideration about using these systems to teach and engage young people about energy? It seems like a great way to engage the next generation of the energy conscious community.
Absolutely. That's another easy one. We're already engaged in young youth programs and summer programs. So we have actually youth workers that were invited that are going to help me just do some, some small cleaning and stuff on the arrays. But part of that is obviously the educational piece about what they're actually looking at, what they're working around, looking at those monitors. And yeah, definitely just allowing them access, again, just allowing the youth access and visualizing this, I think, is a benefit to the industry. But yeah, that's definitely.
Great. We're nearing the end of our time. I'm going to ask this one question, and then we'll see if anybody has any final thoughts. What factors would you attribute to the success of this project? And that question can be for any of you or all of you.
I can jump in first.
Success. Yeah, go ahead, Amy. I'll go second. I'll go second or last.
Okay, I'm gonna say Dan. I already told you. It's having a champion. Dan's the best. He keeps the vision. He's not afraid to say no. He's not afraid to say that's not aligned with what we're doing. I think combining that with a diverse team of at the outset, Check Bay with Bill and Niels at Madison Solar, and then us at Microgrid, bringing in diverse perspectives. We worked very smoothly together and able to, again, make those data-driven decisions, incorporating, the cold hard math with our qualitative intuition, and being able to bring in different perspectives, I think is important as well. So, one single champion in Dan, and then a nice diverse team that that can make collaborative decisions together.
Oh, thank you. I don't deserve probably much of the credit. Again, the team in general speaks for itself. And then even the teams here have teams behind them. So I think even with saying that, we're probably leaving a lot of our team members not mentioned and stuff. And so I think first of all, you got to have that established team, you know. And again, I think Bill highlighted the immediate team, and that'll quickly grow, and that's a positive thing. So, you know, letting your team grow and letting those relationships get established and grow are huge. The other thing though I want to highlight is leadership though. I think without proper leadership, again, without the DOE grant, a lot of this stuff doesn't get triggered. A lot of those funding mechanisms are developed and established by leadership, champions like Bill as well too though, but leadership in general. Tribal leadership was able to allow me to go after and set goals, but then also go and establish this team. So again, I think leadership is a big key. So I think that last reference or that last question about youth is huge, because those are the future leaders. We want to make them aware of these technologies. We want to introduce them. We want to get them exposed. So I think at the end of the day, we need to make sure that our leadership is educated up to par with how these technologies work and are applied. And again, appreciate it. Thank you for all the great questions.
Yeah, does anybody have anything else before I turn it back over to Sam? Anything that you want to put out there that nobody asked about? Anybody? Nobody? All right. Well, thank you. Thanks to everyone. This is being recorded. It will be sent out via email, and it will be posted on our website. And I really appreciate everyone's time today. And I'm going to toss it back over to Sam to close us out.
Thanks, Shelley, and thank you to all of our panelists and to everyone who attended today. That was a great webinar. We have a couple of webinars in the works. One on July 28th will be on the topic of justice in 100% clean energy policies, a scorecard for equity and lessons from Washington State. That's on July 28th. And then on August 25th, we will be discussing the LA 100 study, lessons for state 100% clean energy planning. So both of those webinars are listed on our website, cleanegroup.org/webinars. And we've got a couple more that we are working on scheduling, but those are the ones that we've got up now. So you can register for those on our website. And as Shelley said, we did record the webinar today. That'll be, we'll send that to you via email either today or tomorrow. And we hope to see you at an upcoming webinar. So thank you again, everyone. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye.